Alright guys, welcome back. In this video we are going to be completing our client.py file. Now in the last video I actually put it as 198 but it should be 192, but don't worry about it too much because this is just a dynamic IP address, so every time I restart my computer it's going to be changing. So at the end of this video I'm probably going to just update this IP address, and in the next video we are going to try out our program locally. But before this video, let's actually just complete our client.py file and let's just focus on that. So the first thing I'm going to do is make another if condition, and in that if condition we are going to check whether instruction is there or not. We are just going to write an if condition and we are going to check the data length, and if that data length is greater than 0, then we are going to do something with that data. So this is basically for, let's say, if the user of the server.py file has pressed enter like by mistake or something, we are just going to check whether something has been entered or not. Now if the command is of cd, it's going to go to this if condition and then it's going to execute the change directory command using this function. But if it's not the cd command, it's going to come to this if condition and then we are going to write some variables and it's going to execute the statements under this. So the first thing we are going to do is actually create a variable called cmd, and then we are going to use a subprocess package, and we are going to use something known as popen. So what this will basically do is open up this kind of a terminal. Now inside this, what we want is that we should be able to execute our commands. So we are just going to copy this from over here and paste this over here. Now this statement actually gets us the string only after the third character, but we want all the characters. So we are just going to remove this 3 from over here. Now whenever we type a command, for example echo hey, instead of getting all the characters after the third character, we are going to get the whole string. And what this popen is going to do is it's going to open up a process which will execute this statement. Now the next thing we want is actually a parameter known as shell equals to true. So what this does is that it gives us an access to shell commands. So for example, commands like dir are shell commands, and whenever we type in shell equals to true, we'll be able to access these commands. Now we need to do a little bit of more housekeeping. So we have to write some parameters for standard input and output stream. So let me just write them out and you will understand what is the use of these parameters. So the first parameter is of stdout, and the value of this parameter is subprocess.pipe. Similarly, there are two more parameters, stdin and stderror. So let me just copy this from over here, paste it again, then put a comma, paste it again, and instead of this stdout I'm going to write stdin, and instead of this stdout I'm going to put stder. So stdout basically is the output after we type in a command. So for example, if we type in echo hey, this hey is actually the output, the standard output, and echo hey is the standard input. But for example, if we type in like really weird command, let's say random characters, and press enter, it's going to give us an error, and that is the standard error. We'll be using the standard output in the next statement. Now that we have created a variable and actually executed the command or the instruction, we need to send the output back to a server to see what's happening. So there are two kinds of outputs that we can send. First is of the bytes character, which we actually have to send to the server, and the second output is of the string type, which we can use to display it on a friend's computer. So for example, if we are helping out a friend, we want to make sure that we are displaying it on his computer, that whatever kind of stuff we are doing from our server. So for example, if we are making a new file, your friend should also be able to see that what kind of commands you are writing in the terminal of your server, and make sure you're not doing something fishy. But if you're a hacker, obviously you can ignore some of this stuff. For example, you don't want to display a string onto your friend's or your victim's computer, so that is totally understandable. But anyways, so the first variable we are going to write is output, and we are going to call it byte. So it will contain the output of byte format, and inside this variable we are going to write cmd.stdout.read plus, let me just copy it again. Let me just copy it again and paste it over here, and instead of stdout we are just going to type in stder. So if there is an error or there's an output, it's going to combine both of these statements and store it in this output underscore byte variable. Now let's do it the same thing for output string. Instead of byte, we are going to write str. Now what we can do is we can use this output byte variable to actually convert it to a string. So we are just going to type in str, and we are just going to paste this output byte file over here, and then we are going to put a comma and type in UTF-8. So what this basically does is it says don't do any fancy thing with the string, just make it a normal string. So the next thing we need to do is actually send this output string to our server, and in our server.py file it's going to print out the client response from over here, which is going to receive using this connection receive function. So we actually need to send this output string to our server, but first, because this is a string and we just use this output byte to convert it into a string, we are going to convert this string into a byte again. So we are going to use the s, that is the socket dot send function, to send this string, but first we have to convert it into byte. So we'll use the encode function, and inside this encode function we can just write output string. Alright, and this is going to send the output back to our server. But one thing what I want to do extra is that, for example, whenever we type in something like, for example, echo hey, or for example, let's say cd dot dot, it gives us this directory where we are currently residing in. So whenever we send this output string, it doesn't actually send this current working directory. So this directory is actually known as a current working directory, the directory where we are currently working on. So what I want to do is, with the output string, we also want to send this current working directory. So for that, I'm just going to make a variable of current, then let's call it working directory. And inside this, we are going to use the OS package, and we are going to write get current working directory function. But what this does is this just gets this current working directory, but it doesn't get this greater than character. So what we are going to do is we're just going to add this greater than character, and there you go. And this is our current working directory variable, which I'm just going to add after this output string. So let's add current working directory, and that is how it's going to send the whole output string and the current working directory to the server. So the last thing that I want to do is that I want this thing to print out on the client's computer as well. So if your friend wants to see what you are currently working on, what are you doing, if you are creating a new file, we actually want to print all of these things on the client's computer as well as the server's computer. Obviously, if you are a hacker, you don't need to print this stuff, but I'm just going to print it anyways. So to print it out, you can just type in print, and inside this print you can type in output string, and that is going to print it on the client's computer. So guys, this is pretty much it for this video. In the next video, we are going to execute both the client.py file and the server.py file on a local computer and see what's working and how it is working in the next video. So I'll see you over there.